Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Women of the Bible Wednesday. I'm very sorry about last week. It was just the most craziest, hectic week, and I wasn't able to post a video. But today we are back, and it's wonderful to be able to share this with you. If you hear some background noise, it's because I'm washing clothes upstairs, and I'm down in my office in the basement, so I'm sorry for that background noise. Today's story is found in 1 Kings 17. It takes place during the reign of the wicked Queen Jezebel. See, because of God's anger toward her and others who have worshipped other gods, the countryside has suffered a famine for 3 years. Only the very wealthy could afford grain for bread. Some have died, others are close to death. And one of those is a widow, a Gentile from the town called Zarephath. Day after day, month after month, she's tried to put aside what little grain she could find, whatever drops of oil she could save. And though she starved herself to feed her child, his distended belly looked at her every single day. And in her mind, she felt like she had failed in the most basic ways a mother could, unable to protect, nurture, and provide for her child. And so with her son near death, she goes out one last time to gather sticks for what she believes will be a final meal before they starve to death. Outside the city gate, she sees a man and recognizes him as a man of God because of this mantle that is wrapped around his shoulders. And though he too is emaciated, God has cared for him, commanding ravens to supply food and placing him near a brook that provided clean water. His name is Elijah, and God has told him, in fact, commanded him to go to Zarephath now, telling him that a widow there will give him food. And so when he sees her, he asks for some water. And as she goes to get it, he tells her, also bring some bread back. And she must have looked at him like he was crazy. Are you kidding me? Do you see what I look like? We don't have tons of food. I only have a little grain and a tiny bit of oil that I'm hoping to give to my son so he might live one more day. But Elijah tells her not to be afraid. Trust me, cook a biscuit for me first, and then you will both eat. For I promise you, God says your grain and oil will not fail you. This widow, who had felt utterly alone, had no idea that God had his eye on her. For some reason, she believed Elijah and somehow summons the courage to do it, giving him everything she had. And once she did that, amazingly, every time she dipped her hand into the flour, every time she poured oil from the jug, she saw another miracle unfold, another sign of evidence of God's provision. Just as Elijah promised, the supply of flour and oil lasted day after day, month after month, never failing, until at last the rains came and revived the land. Her cup truly overflowed until the day her boy stopped breathing. After all that this woman had gone through, her son gets sick and dies. And it seems more than she can bear. She's reached the breaking point. She unloads her anger and grief on Elijah, blaming herself, as most of us would do, for somehow failing our kids. Even though she'd witnessed a miracle and had been fed by the very hand of the Lord, she still had her moment of weakness and doubt. Despite her faith, she felt like God had forsaken her and is somehow punishing her. In fact, even Elijah asked God, why do this? And when we read this story, we understand that feeling, don't we? At least I know I do. Well, after much pleading, miraculously Elijah is able to bring back her son. And as he hands the living child back to his mother, she remembers her faith and the mercy of the Lord. And as she sobs buckets of tears, she tells Elijah that by this she knows he is really and truly a man of God. See, in that moment, she realized that even when she thought God had forsaken her and there was no hope, he didn't leave her alone. Once again, he heard her prayers and provided deliverance. What this story shows us is that God doesn't ignore the needs of those who can't help themselves. He doesn't urge them to pick themselves up and get going when there are no resources to help them. He doesn't pat them on the back and say, sorry, life is tough. Instead, he sometimes intervenes by miraculous understatement In this case, by making sure that a little bit of oil and flour, just enough for a small loaf, didn't run out. It's like that unexpected check that comes just when you need it, or that cash you find in a pocket of an old coat. It's like when another mother gives you her kids' outgrown clothes, some of which still have tags on them, and your kids love them. It's like when God uses something or someone to change your partner's heart just when you thought they didn't love you and there was no hope anymore. It's having just enough to make it through the day. See, the truth is, our God is still a miraculous provider, granting what we need, sometimes in the most unexpected ways. What we learn here is that God is very aware of this widow and her needs. In fact, Elijah had to travel way out of his way to get to this woman. Zarephath was in the opposite direction from where he was, yet she was important enough to God that he commanded Elijah to go to her. I can't imagine what her prayers must have been, but I bet she didn't think they would be answered like they were. What we see is a woman who went to the very edge of her faith, and God caught her and sustained her by his hands. But that's what God does. So often God asks us to go to the very end of our limits, the bottom of our barrel, calling upon all our resources before he provides deliverance. Sometimes asking us to sacrifice all that we have in order to gain much greater blessings. In the end, when she trusted God with everything she had, God provided everything she needed. That's what our God does. And what is so interesting is that this woman is the first individual cited by Jesus in the Gospel of Luke after he returns from his 40 days in the wilderness and gives his sort of inauguration address. He'll tell her story to show that his love goes out to everyone. Everyone, including you and me. And that, my friends, fills me with hope. Now please, stay safe, get vaccinated or get your booster. Never stop looking for the blessings and never give up on hope. God loves you, and so do I. Have a great week, and I'll see you soon. Peace.